looks like we have about 22, 23 joining us. We can go ahead and get started because I know all of your time is important. So hello, I'm Julie Rodewald, the Voter Services Director for the League of Women Voters of San Luis Obispo County, and I want to welcome you to Lunch with the League. For those of you unfamiliar with the League, we are a nonpartisan organization, which means we do not support or oppose political parties or candidates. Our mission is to protect the right to vote and encourage civic engagement. For this election, our message is register, learn, vote, to encourage our citizens to participate in this most basic and most important right. To that end, we will be convening each Monday until Election Day on November 3rd to bring you insightful information and conversations about this election, how you can best prepare for the changes in voting, and we hope that you will join us on this journey. A couple of housekeeping items. If you have questions, please use the Q&A or the chat feature to submit them. We do have a lot of information to impart today, but we will try to answer any questions that are submitted. Also, the webinar is being recorded and will be available on both our website and our Facebook page. Before I joined the League, I was the county clerk recorder in San Luis Obispo for 20 years and have conducted many elections, although none quite as challenging as this one. While the election staff is hard at work to put everything in place, the successful conduct of any election relies on so many others. The people that run the facilities that we use as polling places or voter service centers, those that volunteer as precinct workers, the vendors who assist by printing ballots and envelopes and ensuring that every voter gets the correct ballot. And last, but certainly not least, the postal carriers who make sure that the vote-by-mail ballots and other voting materials are delivered to our voters and back to the elections office in a timely manner. But when all the preparation is done and the voting begins, it is you, the voters, who can help determine the success of an election. So let's take a look at how you can help. First and foremost, we really want to encourage you to be prepared. There are some great resources that are available at slovote.com. You can, from this site, you can register to vote, you can check your registration status, and you can track your ballot. And we'll step through each one of those. The register to vote is very easy. If you're not registered or know somebody who's not registered, it's a great way to get registered. You just simply answer the questions that are online. And once you submit your registration, your DMV signature is attached to your voter registration, and that is sent directly to the elections office. So you're registered immediately upon doing that. Okay, now I'm being challenged. There we go. So to check your status, it's equally as easy. You simply enter your first name, your last name, your driver's license or ID card number, your social security, the last 4 digits, and your date of birth. And rest assured that this information is not captured by the site. It's just a way to present it to the database so that they can come back with whether or not you are registered. And you can, this is what came back when I checked my status. I am an active voter. It shows the address where I'm registered to vote. So you want to make sure that that address is correct. It does tell you what your political party preference is, and that I am not registered as a permanent vote-by-mail voter. Now, if you've been listening, paying attention to what's going on in this election, you'll know that that doesn't make any difference. Every registered voter will get a ballot for this election. And then on this site also, you can, just below that, you can sign up for ballot tracking, which we'll talk about in a moment. And at the very bottom of the screen down here, it says, please register to vote if you need to change your information. So if your address is wrong or you added a mailing address, make sure that you re-register to vote. So this is the ballot tracking, which is really a great feature. Again, you're just going to enter your name, your first name, your last name, your date of birth, and what your residential zip code is, and you're going to click on register or submit. And what you get back is, how do you want to be contacted? You can opt in by selecting email and entering an email address. You can get your notifications by text. You can get your notifications by voice. You can get your notifications using all three methods if that's what you want to do. You can also limit your notification hours. So let's say that you want to only get notifications between 10 in the morning and noon. You can limit your hours below that. And then there's another button at the bottom that asks you what your language preference is. It's a very cool system. It tracks your ballot from the minute it goes to into the mail stream to be delivered to you until it's received at the county elections office and ready for counting. So it goes through the whole signature process to let you know that your ballot has been accepted and is ready for counting. I urge everybody to use this system and sign up. So how else can you be prepared? We really encourage you to make a plan, and that plan should be to use and complete your vote by mail ballot that's being sent to you. In San Luis County, those will go out around October 1st. The last day that they can be mailed is for that first initial mailing is October 5th. So everyone should be receiving those that first week in October. Plan on returning it by mail, and if you're going to do that, mail it early, or you can take it to a drop box. In San Luis County, our local libraries have partnered with the elections office for voters to be able to use their secure book return slots that are open 24/7 as a way to deposit their ballots into a secure box. The county staff will then pick those ballots up I think it's every 3 to 5 days until we get closer to the election, and then it's much more frequently. And then track your ballot all the way through acceptance for counting. But we really want to encourage you also to have a plan B. What if something happens? Let's say you voted your ballot, it's all ready to go, and you spilled coffee on it, or somehow it got thrown away, or you misplaced it. You need to know how you can get a replacement ballot, and there will be instructions for doing that on the county clerk's website. Also know where your nearest voter service center is. There will be a list of both drop boxes and voter service centers in the election material that's sent to you with your vote by mail ballot, as well as available on the county clerk's website. And really think about avoiding busy time. If you do have to go to a voter services center to get a replacement ballot or to drop off your ballot, make sure that you avoid busy times. Again, the whole purpose of the way that we're conducting this election is to protect the health and safety of our voters and our poll workers. So have that plan B just in case you have to resort to it as we get closer to the election. The other way that you can help is that you can sign up to be a precinct worker. And I want you to really think about this before you make the decision to do that, because we're really stressing, make sure that you're comfortable, make sure that you're going to be comfortable working with voters for even a portion of those 4 days that the voter service centers are open. So I'm just going to give you a brief rundown on what's happening for this election. The 23 voter service centers around the county will be open, and we just had a question about this. They'll be open October 31st through November 2nd. They're open 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then on November 3rd, they'll be open 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. The other thing is that the elections offices are open beginning October 5th for doing the same thing, for accepting ballots, for getting replacement ballots. They'll be open during regular business hours until October 31st, and then they'll be open for the extended hours also. And there's an election office in both San Luis Obispo and Atascadero. So you have a lot of options for getting replacement ballots or returning those. So what's required of the staffing? And we just had another question come in, and I'm going to put that on hold and I'll answer that in just a moment. So at each voter service centers, there's going to be 3 to 5 election employees, those that have worked in the elections office and are trained on using the laptops and the ballot printing equipment that is going to be necessary to run the election. And then there'll be 7 to 9 volunteers who are paid by stipends. So that adds up to about 300 to 320 workers per day. So it's quite a few poll workers that we have to recruit to make sure that we can staff these voter service centers. And what are some of the typical tasks that you'll be doing if you decide that you want to be a precinct worker? There's the voter assistance clerks that help direct voters to the proper line. They ensure that voters are following distancing guidelines. They'll be cleaning equipment and any touch surfaces, and they'll provide masks for those voters not wearing one. There's a provisional and conditional voter registration, which is essentially same-day registration. And they'll assist those voters to ensure that their envelopes and the roster are completed. The ICX is a ballot marking device that voters can use, particularly voters with disabilities can use particularly voters with disabilities can use to vote without any assistance. So they'll be working with those voters, ensure that the machine is operational and clean throughout the day, and then properly locked down at night. Those that are working the ballot box will assist voters who need help depositing their ballot. They'll hand out I voted stickers and ensure secrecy sleeves are disinfected prior to use. And then there's outside voter assistance. These people will be accepting voted ballots after checking to ensure they're properly signed. So it'll basically be a drive-through. A voter can drive up and hand the ballot through their window to be put into a ballot box. They'll hand out I voted stickers, and they'll assist any voter who wishes to vote curbside. So one of the questions that we had is, can you ask to work at your own polling place in your neighborhood? And I want to stress that for this election, there won't be the traditional polling places. Typically, there were about 80 polling places set up throughout the county. For this election, there will only be the 23 voter service centers. So it's a big change in that regard. But yes, you can ask to say, I only want to work in the city of Atascadero, or I only want to work in Grover Beach. So you can specify that when you get to the precinct worker application, or you can let the person who's coordinating that know where it is that you would like to work. And someone else had asked, is there a way that we can obtain the presentation? Like I said, we are taping this. It will be available on our website, and I'll also make sure that I put the PowerPoint on the website as well. And then you can take that to use for whatever you want. Oops. So what's going to be required in terms of working? We're open for 4 days. Are we requiring every precinct worker to work all 4 days? No, what the elections office is asking is that Saturday through Monday, a precinct worker work at least 12 hours. So that can be 3 half-day shifts. It can be 1 full-day shift and 1 half-day shift. But this will help with familiarize the workers with all of the tasks that they were doing. And then on election day, a worker can specify that they want to work a half day or work the full day. So what kind of training is going to be required? There will be an orientation via Zoom, which will be kind of what's expected of precinct workers, talk about the health and safety protocols that are put into place, answer any general questions. But most of the on-the-job training is going to happen on your first day of work. So when you show up that morning, you'll be given your assignment and you'll be helped through the process. Most of them are very simple, and there will also be instruction manuals and very simple to follow the instruction manual and also with the verbal instructions. And then for these workers, there's also a stipend. A full day in San Luis County is $97 and a half day is $48.50. Now, I recognize that this is not a lot of money for this very, very important work that you do. And most of the people who work as precinct workers recognize that really the reward is being there to help make sure that the election is a success and that voters can cast their ballots. So what are the safety precautions that we're going to be putting into place? First of all, voters are encouraged to use their vote by mail ballot and not even come to the voter services centers. But knowing that that's not going to be what happens for every voter, we have developed health and safety protocols. There's a manual. There's also a plan in place for implementing that. And then there will be personal protective equipment. There'll be KN95 masks, which are supplied by the public health department. There will be face shields, plexiglass guards at contact points. There'll be regular cleaning. Hand sanitizer will be available for both voters and precinct workers. And then we're offering our voters single-use pens. They'll get that pen to sign the roster, to vote their ballot, and take that home with them so that they don't have to share that pen with anybody else. One of the questions that came up is, are masks required inside a voter service location? And yes, we are asking voters to please wear a mask. And as I said, if they don't have a mask, we will provide a mask for that voter. But if someone refuses or can't wear a mask, has a medical reason to not wear a mask, we're also developing procedures to help out with that process. One of the options would be to vote curbside, for the voter to stay in their car, and the poll workers, precinct workers will bring out everything that they need to vote safely and securely in their car. And if that's not acceptable, then there are protocols for how to work with a voter and physically distance that voter enough so that there is not a danger either to themselves or to other voters that are waiting to vote. So if you want to sign up to be a precinct worker, there's a couple of ways. You can go to slowvote.com, which is the county clerk's website. It's a little convoluted. You have to click on elections and voting and then search for the precinct worker program. And then there's an application that can be submitted. And in there you would say, this is where I want to be working. Or you can send an email letting them know of your interest to precinctworker@co.slo.ca.gov. So that's all that we have for this week. Let me see if I have any other questions that have come up that I haven't answered here for you. And then I'll tell you about next week. Oops. There was one question about, is there any other way to help besides other than polling place work? In terms of helping with the election, it would be working in the elections themselves. Certainly, one of the things that we really want to encourage everybody to do is share the information that you learn with everybody that you know. Share it with your family, share it with any contacts that you have. Really, the biggest fear about this election is everybody not understanding how it's going to work. So we really want to encourage people to share that information, encourage people to register to vote, encourage them to check their registration status, encourage them to make sure that that they know how to vote and where to vote. So one of the question, I have another question. Why is it slowvote.com, not CA, for folks who may be suspect or not gov? So when the county clerk recorder created the slow vote, for some reason it got created as slowvote.com. It may be that it's not, that slowvote.gov was not available. But I can assure you that that is the county clerk's website. The other way that you can go to it is you can go to SLO County website and then click on the clerk recorder. It's going to get you to the same place. The slowvote.com was just a way for to make it easy for people to remember the website. And another question that came in is there a plan if there are not enough workers, closing locations or rotating hours? No, at this point, they're still working very diligently. One of the things that we're really hoping for is, with schools not back to in-person classes, we're really hoping to get the student poll workers that we rely on so heavily to volunteer to work at the polls. And I know that the county clerk's office is working on using that pool of voters, or not voters, because they only have to be 16 to be a student poll worker. They don't have to be a registered voter. So the plan is to make sure that all of those locations are staffed. They won't be closing locations. They're committed to, if they're, that all of those locations will be open for all of the hours that they've already been specified. And some of that is set in state law, that they have to be open for those. It doesn't allow a county to close certain locations. So a question came in of how soon would you hear if you're accepted as a precinct worker? I sent in a few weeks ago. You should have received notification, although they may not be. They typically send out what are called appointment letters, and I can check and make sure that check with the precinct worker. I would send an email back to that email address, precinctworker@co.slo.ca.us, and ask if you've been accepted as a worker. And thanks for volunteering. That's wonderful. Couple more questions. Will there be security at the voting sites? I accept one to show up, make a fuss, and video it to make a point to certain type of people. There won't be security. Certainly law enforcement will be available if there's a scene. There's going to be an election, a voter service center coordinator, and they would be responsible for working with that person. We're very sensitive about having security at a voting location because we don't want to discourage people who might be wary of seeing someone in uniform at that voter service center. Certainly our precinct workers and our voter service coordinator will have protocols in place. Just like with any election, I mean, we would often get unruly voters who were upset because they couldn't wear a t-shirt supporting a candidate or a hat or whatever. So there have been instances where law enforcement has been called to help diffuse the situation, and we would be taking that same kind of process. Another big fear that I hear is security and being hacked. So it's very important that everybody understand that the security of this election is critically important to the elections office, and they're going through multiple tests to make sure that nobody can hack into the equipment that's being used on election day. The voting equipment itself is not connected to anything. It's not connected to the internet. It's not connected to a network. So that's not a concern. It's kept under lock and key in a locked room inside a locked office. But certainly the security and minimizing all of those risks is a vital important to the elections office, and they will be working on that. One of our participants from afar asked about any information for Alameda County. And unfortunately, I don't have that, but you should be able to get that if you search for the Alameda County Elections Office. The same kind of information should be available. Or you can contact your local League of Women Voters there and say, hey, we think this is a great idea. You should do something similar. Will there be a published list of topics for your next 9 topics? Yes, that's already on our website. And on this page, you can see what our website is. If you just search League of Women Voters, San Luis Obispo County, you can find it. There'll also be, if you friend us on Facebook, then you'll get notifications. And then a question came up about, is our league going to be manning specific precincts? In other words, can we still volunteer as a precinct worker with the league? So we're not going to be able to, because of the number of people that it would take, we're not going to be able to specifically adopt, which is what we called it, a voter service center. So what we're going to encourage our members to do is, if you want to be a poll worker, please sign up through the county, and your time will be managed by the elections department. If you are interested in working, but you're okay if you don't, sign up with the league, and you'll be getting information on that in about, I think by the end of this week. Sign to be like a last minute replacement. And we've told the county that we will maintain a list of last minute replacements, because somebody always will cancel. I mean, it's just invariable, you know, that something happened in their family or they became ill and they can't serve, so that we would have a way of helping them fill those last minute cancellations. One more question, and can we get a copy? Yes, we'll post it on our website. Sorry, you guys are inundating me with questions here, which is wonderful. Will there again be a worker who can contact the county clerk office to see if a mail-in ballot was already received? That's a process that was put in place for the March election. That's not going to happen for this election, because our poll workers will have the ability to find out if that vote by mail ballot has been returned. They'll have a secure connection to the county database, so they'll be able to process that voter. So it'll essentially be the same thing. Those voters will not be having to work will not be having to vote a provisional ballot. So I think, and now I lost my thing. I'm going to stop sharing this. Let me just talk about what's happening next week, and then I'll look to see if we have any more questions that have come up. So next week, we're going to be talking about how to be an informed voter, learn about available resources for information on candidates and ballot measures. You can send questions that you have to voterservice@lwvslo.org. Follow us on Facebook, visit our webpage for more information. And then we really want to urge you to remember that the elections office is the subject matter expert on elections. So if you have any questions about, can the voting system be hacked, or why aren't you providing security, direct those questions to the county elections office. They are the experts, and they should be the source that people are getting their information. Besides the League of Women Voters, which also tries to prevent the accurate information. But if I didn't answer any of your questions adequately, that would be the next step, or to email me at voterservice.lwv. So I'm going to stop my screen share, come back to this, see if there are any other questions. One question was, will next week's meeting use the same link as today? And no, I don't believe that it will be, but there will be a new link that'll be on our website and or on on our Facebook page. And I think that those are all the questions that I have. Wow, 17 questions. Oh, one more. Will there be testing for COVID? No, we will not be testing. I believe that there will be a kind of a self-cert questionnaire that the poll workers will take every day. You know, are you feeling well? Do you have a fever? You know, have you been exposed? Those sorts of questions. But we will not be testing voters when they enter. Instead, we'll be providing that personal protective equipment so that our poll workers, precinct workers, can stay safe from COVID-19. I appreciate all of your interest. I appreciate all of your questions, and I appreciate all of our attendees. Last week we had maybe 12 or 13. This week we're up to 27. So thank you very much for everybody who joined us today, and hopefully you'll be joining us again in the future. Thank you so much.